8:03, good morning. I'm Vicki Moore.
And I'm Mike Simpson. So, the deal, we've been talking about it all morning. Tentative deal for the West Coast ports all up and down the coast. So, ports of L.A., Long Beach included, shipping companies, the dock workers after a year with no contract, and all of these work stoppages that we've been telling you about. Let's go live now to the executive director of the Port of L.A. is on the line with us, Gene Seroka.
Good morning, Gene. Thanks for joining us.
Vicki, Mike, good morning.
So you got this deal, a long time coming throughout this nearly year of protected talks. You lost a lot of shipping companies to the Gulf Coast, to the East Coast. You going to get those back?
We're going to go all out to do just that, Vicki. And while most of us stayed at home during COVID, working remotely, these dock workers were out there on average 6 days a week through historic times doing historic work. Their efforts had to be recognized, and now under the security of a tentative agreement, we're starting to recognize those great efforts.
For those companies and those shippers that went elsewhere, that went east, for those who left, it was a confidence thing, right? Because there kept being stoppages. They weren't sure if people were going to show up to work, if they could get the stuff off the ships in time. How do you lure them back here?
Well, you're exactly right, Mike. And through a 13-month negotiation, the longest I can remember during my career, folks were worried, but we only had a handful of bad days. Now what we've got to do is get out there and return that confidence to the market. I'm in Tacoma, Washington this week at the largest agricultural conference led by Peter Friedman and the Agricultural Transportation Coalition. It started on the ground last night with the announcement at that conference's dinner, and will continue on a whistle-stop tour throughout the country.
Technology was an issue in these talks, AI, much like it is in the writers' strike. Can you briefly describe sort of the deal that was made when it comes to use of AI and technology at the ports?
Well, Vicki, although I'm not at the table, we're at the confluence of all these events, and the question is about robotics. We know that technology is moving faster than ever. We simply cannot leave the worker behind, and all indications are we've taken that into account in the new contract.
Yeah, I mean, does it always come down to some level of automation is going to happen as technology moves, right? But you don't wipe everybody out, which is robots.
That's correct. And we've got to start day in and day out. And that's why the Port of Los Angeles, along with our neighbors in Long Beach, are creating the nation's first goods movement training campus to upskill and reskill workers. Those of my vintage have to be prepared for the technology of the future.
Give me some numbers very quickly. From pre-pandemic, right, what are you down right now? And how long will it take you to get back those shipping companies from the East Coast and the Gulf?
Vicki, two big issues. One is the economy, the uncertainty, high interest rates, inflation, and the fact that most retailers and manufacturers, for that matter, still have very high inventories. So imports have been light for the first half of the year. And the second piece is about 15% of our cargo has moved to the East and Gulf Coast because of the trepidation created around the uncertainty of the bargaining. That's what we have to start with, and make sure that we're in line with the expectations of our customers.
You're saying, wait a minute, I just want to check that number. You're saying you're down from pre-pandemic 15%? I thought it was more than that.
15% of our normal lift has shifted to the East and Gulf Coast. Year to date, we're down about 27%. But part of that, of course, is based on what's happening in the economy, high inventory levels, interest rates, consumers like you and me spending more in the service sector than we did during COVID on retail goods.
Realistic goal of how much you can claw back?
We're going to try to go after every pound of freight. But history has shown, Mike, that some of that cargo shifted will stick at those East and Gulf Coast ports. We've got to put out a value proposition that resonates with our customers.
Executive Director, Port of L.A., Gene Seroka. Gene, thanks for coming on. 8:07, let's get you over.